Today's video is about a search engine, and it's specifically really for people that are more privacy minded, who don't want to have their browser tracking information uploaded to the search engines or have profiles built around the different types of searches they do over time. It's also for those who don't want to see adverts or sponsored results inserted into the middle of the search results, causing confusion and you're not too sure what's a real search result and what's a sponsored advert. It's also for those that are looking for multi-source searching. In other words, not just getting the results from a single search engine. And also those who want to be able to tweak the UI or the user interface controls a little bit better themselves. So this is actually what we'll be covering in this video. First of all, the pronunciation. This is a bit of a mammoth in the room I saw on the project because there's no clear definition on the project itself. So there's been quite a bit of debate, and I will put a link below as well to some of that debate. Then what is it exactly? What does this service or search engine actually do? I'll just show one or two demo searches so you can just see how it actually works. We'll go through the preferences that each person can set. We'll also then briefly look at how to set it as your browser default, which I've actually done now across all my browsers. I've been pretty impressed with this actually. It's gone a lot better than I expected. And then just some self-hosting tips if you want to host this particular service yourself. So, coming to the mammoth in the room, there was a couple of proposals put forward. Look, this does actually stem, or it's been forked from an earlier project that you can see here at the bottom, SearXNG. But some of the guesses so far have really been around SearXNG, with NG pronounced as in sing, so it would be SearXNG, yes, something like that. Another one was this SearXNG. Then there was actually a SearXNG as well, and then also a searching. And the reason why, pronounced in the word searching, not spelt that way, the reason why is, I understand, because the X, I think, was said to be a Greek letter pronounced as ching, hence the searching. And it sounds, like it makes sense. But what I did actually discover was there's a Wikipedia entry for the original product before it was forked. And I thought, seeing it comes from there, and it is NG for new generation, hence why it actually is spelt then SearXNG, it makes actually more sense logically to say, well, it must be this with NG on the end. So in other words, SearXNG. So hopefully I do pronounce it that way now throughout the video, but that's my consensus really, is that it actually should be called SearXNG. It doesn't sound very intuitive sometimes. It looks a bit like it could have been SearXNG, but SearXNG is apparently what it should be. So coming to sort of what is it then actually, SearXNG is a free internet meta-search engine which aggregates results from more than 70 different search services. So what it's doing here, and this is quite important because I was under the impression originally that this thing's going to be chewing away 24/7, cataloging the whole internet, like a Google search or like Google itself. It's actually not the case. It's very, very lightweight. What it really is doing is you put a search in and it triggers it off to whichever search engines you've asked it to check. And within about a second or two, it's coming back with a whole bunch of results. But the next two lines are also quite important here, because what it's really saying here is users are neither tracked nor profiled. So what is interesting is this particular product is stripping off any and all information from your browser. None of that is being passed through to the actual search engines themselves. It's just this engine going out, pulling results back. And what is sent back down to you is also got everything sort of stripped out of it. So there is nothing that can identify really the end user, and there's no profiling that takes place. Well, not on SearXNG itself, and obviously that is not being passed upstream, so that's also not possible to be profiled or people to be profiled. There's also no registering. You're not registering on this search engine either. So without registration, there's also no connection to you as the end user. So I think from that perspective, it's very, very privacy respecting. If you want to have a search engine where you register like with a Google account and all your searches are recorded and it builds up a profile and sort of intuitively knows what you're looking for, that sort of thing, well then, SearXNG is not what you're looking for. Then stick to Google or whatever other search engine you want to use. And then just the last point there, of course, also is it can be used over Tor as well for online anonymity. So, there's I think that privacy has really been its number one aspect that comes through this very strongly. And I'm also just highlighting here, public or self-hosted. I know a lot of the solutions I've talked about in the past require you, or not require you, but they are self-hosted solutions. You invariably host them in a Docker container on your desktop or on a server or whatever the case is. So just to mention here, SearXNG, lots of people host these sites, myself included, and you can flag it as a public site where it will appear and anybody can actually then use it as a search engine. You'll get most of the benefits of it, even using a public search engine. But obviously, if you want the ultimate privacy, the point is, in other words, you're very sure that the SearXNG itself is not even tracking or profiling you, which isn't what it does, then yes, you can self-host it. So I've got mine self-hosted on a VPS server, but you can even host this on your desktop computer. You can run Docker on the desktop computer with this little thing, and you can just use it as you normally would in your browser. So it is up to you. You can start off with it as a public search, or you can, go for the self-hosting if you feel you want to do that. Try it public and then migrate later maybe. I can just quickly show you where the list of public search engines are if you want to dive in and sort of test a couple of those out. If we look here, you can see there is the web address up at the top over here. If you go to this address, you will see the list of various search engines, and you can resort them by version number, I think, country, network, a couple of other stats here, but essentially you can go to any one of these and just click on the link over here on the left and start using it, and that can be your instance that you then make use of as your SearXNG search engine. So I'm going to just do a demo around my own search engine and then just show you some of the preferences as well, and I think that'll just give you a better feel for what it actually does and why I'm fairly impressed. It's certainly returning most of the results that I'm expecting to see. So this is my own instance, and that's sort of pretty well much what you would normally see, I suppose, if you see a search engine. So where we'll start obviously is in the middle here, and let me just put in something like, let me just search for Gadgeteer paperless ngx. That is actually a video I did not so long ago. You'll also notice if I've gone past, say, about 4 or 5 characters, you can also set things like, well, I've got it set up for 4 characters. After that, it'll start showing you some suggested results as well. But let's just go paperless ngx, hit enter, and that's it. It's already returned the results. So what it's showing you here on the top right, just as a matter of interest, there is the response time in seconds. Okay, now what's happened here is this does sometimes happen. I know specifically with DuckDuckGo, there's some capture issues around this. Some people have suggested turning DuckDuckGo off. DuckDuckGo is also a meta search engine. In other words, it searches other search engines. So some have questioned what is the value possibly of using DuckDuckGo, but okay, I'm just mentioning that there really. The others have actually returned results. And the other thing here, of course, is the download of results. This is set by the hoster. So in my case, I've allowed people to save the results as an RSS feed or as a CSV file. There's one or two other, I think HTML is another option you can save it as well. So these are the results that you're seeing, and I think this looks fairly sort of typical, but you're used to even with Google. You've got general images, videos, and the various categories, and I'm going to move across those just now. I just want to show you here that there is my actual results. So it has returned some valid results, and it goes on to GitHub and Reddit and other results here, a post that I did on LinkedIn and that sort of thing. So that's sort of working perfectly well. On the right hand side here, you'll see it also clearly identifies which search engines actually returned the specific results. So in this case, this one on Reddit came back from Brave and Yahoo, and there is a cached view as well sometimes that you can access, if the original page is not available. And I think if I remember correctly, it's supposed to open the Web Internet Archive version of the page, if it has been indexed, that is. If it hasn't, it might give you a 0 result. And it's taking longer to open this than it is to open anything else. Now, this could actually be the Internet Archive playing up at the moment, because They've been offline a little bit, so I don't know if it's causing some problems at the moment. Let's just have a look here at a couple of other things. So the language is set at the moment to English Global. That's often the best one to use, but you can of course select, and this seems to also affect the regional settings. I've noticed if you go for like English, United Kingdom or English South Africa, it seems to return more regional settings. So there's something that you can actually make use of as well. You've got different date filters you can set, and of course your safe or not safe search as well. Let's just move across to some of these here quickly. If we look at images, quite a few of these I recognize from either my videos or screenshots or other things that I've put together already. So again, perfectly valid information that seems to be coming back here under videos. And this is quite interesting. Did the search a little bit earlier, and this is something interesting you're going to notice here. When you've searched for video, well, filtering now on the video tab, what comes up here at the top is not YouTube. As typically on Google, you will see the YouTube video filters up to the top of the search. Well, look at this. Interesting. This is the video that I posted to a PeerTube site, and it's brought that back as the top result, which is quite interesting. It gives you a little bit of summary information, like views and the snippet about the video. And I think, okay, there's some other people's videos. These are some of my other videos. And down here, let me just have a look. That's piped. That's somewhere else my video has gone to. Okay, earlier when I did this, what actually happened was, and I think, this is Odyssey, so it's also returned search results from Odyssey. Okay, it doesn't seem to have brought back my YouTube video. I can just try run that search again maybe. But it is good to see that it is giving balance to other sources and not just sort of pushing the Google results up to the top really. It's brought back some of my other YouTube videos. Okay, that's interesting. Well, no problem. Obviously, you can go and have a look at things like if there's anything in the news side there, it comes back in the results. And again, you can see the source, Brave News, Bing News. I'll show you just now where we get those from. Map is not going to show anything because this probably isn't going to be a valid map. If you put something like a city or town or dress or something in, it returns from OpenStreetMap. I think it'll be the same with music. IT results, it's going to be searching things like Docker and GitHub and that sort of thing as well. Science sites, file-based sites. So science-based files, nothing. Social media, quite interesting as well. And you'll see it does tell you where it's returning from. Now, interesting, look at this. It's actually searching quite well across things like Mastodon, Lemmy, TootFinder, and Reddit. Okay, Reddit, I see suspended access. So this can be a little bit of a problem, and why also public search engines that are quite busy, often this sort of thing will end up happening. I'll just have to have a little bit of a look there and see what's going on, why those are being, because it was working a bit earlier. Let's just try something else a little bit more. Gadgets, top gadgets maybe. Another interesting thing is sometimes it'll also give you things like suggestions there that you can click on and then get different searches. So it's giving us this. Again, we can just check under images. Videos. Then I'm seeing quite a bit of federated stuff. There's YouTube coming, some YouTube results coming in. So yeah, there is quite a bit. We can actually check here in the news. We should get some valid news results as well. Yahoo, CNN, CNET, Yahoo, Bloomberg. And let me just check if there's, I don't think this is going to return. Oh, there is actually some there under music. You'll see as well, you've got things like show media. And if it was music, you've got a little player as well. You can play it there. I think, by the way, that I just have a check here under video. Oh, there we go. Show video is the same thing, I think. You can actually see the player underneath there, and you can play the video somewhere inside the search engine. Under files, again, it just depends what you've set up, you know, as your sources there, and social media. So yeah, that's pretty well much really, you know, how search works. Search isn't terribly exciting, I suppose, but I've been quite happy at least with what I'm getting back. I think the responses, yeah, it's pretty good there, 0.3 of a second. So it's quite impressive in terms of speed. So that is really sort of the basic searching. The other two things you've got really are the about over here, which is just going to give you more about the product itself, and then of course also your search syntax. Certain basic things do work, like you can have your search phrase and then minus, say, Facebook to exclude Facebook. That does work for some of the search engines anyway as well, so that's not too much of a problem. Let's just go and have a look then, I think, at preferences so we can see what there is. So your main tabs you've got at the top here are general, user interface, privacy, engine, special queries, and cookies. Those are the main categories. So typically when you're doing a search, there's your default, and it normally just defaults to general, but you could actually have, you know, more if you wanted to. It's just going to bring up longer results really and not categorize so well, I think. This is going to be your search. So these are your defaults you can search. The other thing I do need to say, you'll see when we get to cookies just now, these settings are only saved on the local machine that you're searching from. There is a way to sync them, but it's not being stored anywhere on the search engine and not by Google or anybody else. Again, you know, it's sitting all on your local machine. The autocomplete, you can choose what you want to use for the autocomplete, you know, after you've typed the 4 characters. I'm just using DuckDuckGo. The favicon resolver I've disabled at the moment. It does actually chew quite a bit of extra resources and so on, and I'm just keeping it fairly light. I don't need the little favicon images next to each search result. I'm defaulting to none for safe search, but you know, it depends on the person hosting the platform. You can set it to be strict as default, but the point is people can override that here in the settings. And it's got a few basic plugins like calculator and so on. The one that's maybe of interest here is this open access DOI rewrite. What it's really doing is it's going to try and avoid paywalls by redirecting to open access versions of the same site. And yeah, the rest here I haven't really made use of, to be honest. The other thing that's of interest then maybe is on the user interface. Obviously you can change languages here to be your default language. The theme that I'm seeing at the moment is only simple. I would imagine there could be third-party or community themes that you could put in the settings directory and then choose here. And the theme style is mainly just dark, light, black, that sort of thing. And you've got a couple of other things like the alignment. If you want search results center aligned, if you click to open them on a new tab. Do you want infinite scroll? And do you want searching on category select? In other words, when you click on the new category, click on the next category, it does a new search. And then you can also choose sort of hotkeys. I'm not really using hotkeys very much. What's of interest though, of course, is the privacy side. So the difference here between get and post is essentially how does it get passed from your browser when you do the search to the search engine. If it's a get, it sends it in the URL of the actual browser. You know, where you see search dot whatever, it'll be slash, I think, q equals, and then whatever the search term is. That's what gets passed out over the internet. It doesn't matter. It is SSL encrypted. Nobody's going to see it along the way. But what's of importance is really probably more on your own browser history, because it's a URL. All the searches that you do will appear in your browser history. If you do a post, it gets sent out through the header string when the browser does the query, so it doesn't form part of your search history. That's really the only difference between the get and the post. I'm not too worried because it's only me using the machine, etc., etc. You can just activate here if you want images proxied, if you want to query in the page's title. Just means really that the result page is going to show the page's title. The tracker URL remover, I've got defaulting to on, but again, people can override this if they want. It just says it'll remove tracker arguments from the returned URL if there's any trackers in it. And you'll see again, they're emphasizing here, these settings are stored in your cookies. This allows us not to store this data about you, so it's on your machine. These settings serve your sole convenience. We don't use these cookies to track you. It's first-party cookies stored only on your machine. Then, of course, the interesting part really is going to be the search engines. You click on engines, you can see you've got, again, categories of general search engines, image search engines, video search engines, news, map, etc., etc. So I'll just go down some of these just quickly. Essentially, you can just say how many search engines and which search engines you want for each category. You can obviously enable all or disable all if you wanted to. The more you're going to put on, the slightly longer it could take to return results, and you're going to get a lot more results possibly. But some people just want to fine tune to sort of 4 or 5 specific sites. So it is sort of telling you here which search engines. There'll be normally some enabled by default, and you'll see also if you sort of hover over the search engine, it gives you sort of a little bit of a snapshot of what that search engine is about. If it, especially if it specializes in something specific. So you can just sort of hover there, and then these other columns you've got on the right here, that one is whether it supports the selected language that you've chosen as your default language. The next one is whether it does safe search or not. And then there's also a time range. There's a weighting. So I'm not sure. Oh, you can set the weighting. So you can actually, and again, this is where it helps if you have set up the hosting yourself. If you're self-hosting, you can adjust weightings. So for example, here you can see this has got a much bigger weighting. Or is that a smaller weighting? I'm not too sure now. Versus the others. So that's another advantage. And then you've got here the sort of average response time. It just gives you an idea of whether it's over time, whether it's a reasonably good sort of response from the search engine or not. Its max time and its reliability figures as well. So let's just go down here a little bit. This gives you an idea of sort of some of the search engines under general. You can activate more or less, as I said. Okay, that's it for general. If we go up now and we go to image search engines, you'll see these are now sort of image specific things like Bing images, Brave images, Google, and so on. And again, if you hover over it, you can get a bit of information. Similar information over here we saw just now. Then videos. Again, the usual suspects, but you'll also see things like Daily Motion over there. You'll see Odyssey, a decentralized video hosting platform. Same with PeerTube, Rumble. So let me just go down. YouTube, SeekR as well, and so on. So that's for the video search. So let's go up. Then we've got news. Various news, including Wiki News, Google News, and a couple of others. Maps. So not many over here, but Apple Maps, OpenStreetMap, and Photon. Interesting, I've noticed no Google Maps. I'm not too sure why. Music search. Deezer's there I see as well. SoundCloud and YouTube for music search. IT search, a couple of other different things here as well you'll see. And if some of these look odd again, as I said, you can sort of just hover over them there and see what they're about. Hacker News, and search code. So that's that one. Science, Google Scholar I see is there, Wiki Species, and a couple of others. Under file search, so you'll see here, these are obviously for apps now. Most of these are Android, APK Mirror, Apple App Store, F-Droid, and so on. But there's also some others here that are more general search, including, for example, Pirate Bay and Z Library as well, or Z Library. So again, you can decide if you want those included in your results or not. Social media, mostly the decentralized, Lemmy, Mastodon users, Reddit, and Toot. Let's just have a see what's going on, if there's anything here. I don't see anything there about Reddit at the moment, but there you go. And then other is the last sort of category of search engines. There's the movie searches, obviously, shopping, weather, Goodreads, and that's sort of really it on the search engines. So we can move on to like special queries. I haven't really done much with this. It's really just things you can toggle on and off. There's the Tor settings as well. The cookies of interest though. So obviously it's summarizing here. This part is just showing you exactly what is it storing in terms of the cookies. But also of interest is if we go down here, so you'll see a lot of these are the defaults that I have set. You've got a couple of links here that have got a whole lot of interesting data in. And essentially what you can do is there's sort of one or two ways here that you can transfer and sync between different machines using your SearXNG server or search service. And the one would be, you could take this search URL here and you can, well, it's got a copy, and it hasn't got a copy thing on the right, but in essence, you would copy this long URL. And if you were on the other browser now, you would take that and you would paste it in over here, URL to restore your preferences to another browser. And you would not have to go and reset all these defaults on that particular browser. Remember, you're not logging into a Google here that where you make some changes, it sort of syncs across all your different machines. You're going to use this copy and paste. And the other way of doing it here is the copy preferences hash. You could basically copy this long preferences hash, and it's got a copy at the end there. And on your other machine, you're going to go and paste it into preferences hash over here, this field under cookies. And you'll see it says there, these settings are stored in your cookies. This allows us not to store data about you. And that's why you don't have to register to use the search engine. These cookies serve your sole convenience. We don't use these cookies to track you. But in essence, like I said, if you've copied and pasted these across, that's the way that you'll be able to sort of sync your settings across the different machines. And then the other thing I wanted to show while we're on the screen as well is it's got some links here at the bottom to obviously the source code of the project, the issue tracker for the project, public instances, which I've already showed, and engine stats. So if you click on engine stats, that's going to show you the stats for the current search service that you're actually on. So if we click on that, you'll see, maybe I should just go out a bit here. For the engine stats, you'll see that so far the searches that have been done, APK Mirror returned that sort of response time and its reliability. But there's actually also quite a few. For example, Brave News, quite a lot of search results came back for Brave News. And it's just giving you an idea of which search engines are being used the most, which are coming in. This can also be sorted. So you can sort on which search engines retrieved the most results. Pirate Bay, that's interesting. Google Images, Brave Images, Bing Images. Which were the fastest to return results? Well, okay, that's 0. But, point 1, Bing was fastest, Bing News, Deezer, Google News, that sort of thing. So it's just of interest, you can have a look at that as well. On whichever, same with the public instances. If you go to use them, you can also get an idea of how the different search engines are performing. So that is pretty well much it for the user interface and the preferences then. The next thing I really wanted to talk about was So, okay, now I like this particular instance I'm using, whether it's your hosted one or whether it is one of the public ones that that you're using off that other list. And there's sort of about 3 different ways you can do it. I've put a link below to this Chrome extension below the video. This will work for any Chrome or Chromium-based browser. You can install that extension and it will assist you or guide you in setting up, whatever that search engine is then as your default search engine for your browser. The other way is quite interesting. Certain browsers you can right-click on and add it as the default search. And I've seen that Vivaldi does that, for example, and I can just quickly show you that on my Vivaldi. If we look at Vivaldi here now, you can see there it is Vivaldi with a little V. It's the same search engine up there, the one I'm using. But if you click here in the search for and you right-click your mouse, you'll see you've got an option there, Add Search Engine. And there you can also even tick it as Set Default Search Engine. So for Vivaldi, very easy. 1 or 2 others might do it. I see Brave for me is not doing it. It's built into the SearXNG service, so it's already enabled, but not all the browsers may support it. That's the only issue. So yeah, that's that one. Then the other way that sort of will work for anybody really is if you just manually go and add it. And essentially what you want to do is you want to use a string, something like this, HTTPS, and whatever the URL is of the search engine that you want to make use of, whichever of those public ones you want, /search question Q equals and %S. What the %S is, it's going to substitute whatever the search is that you type in the URL line of the browser, and it will execute that for you against that search engine. And that will basically make your search engine then become the default. So let's just have a look at that, maybe say in Brave browser. This could differ, depending on which browser you're using. We go to Brave over here and we go to settings. There. Usually you're going to find something on the left side there like search engine or search. You'll see at the moment it's set to default to Brave and private window also to Brave, and those are the only options I've got. But if I go down to manage search engines and site search, you'll see there they're listed again with little shortcuts to sort of quickly invoke them or to override. And I'm going to go down to add a site search, and I'll say add, and you can just give it any name actually. So I'll just call that Gadgeteer SearXNG. This is where you're going to put in a shortcut, and you could maybe just say it's going to be that. And this is the URL with the %S parameter in place of the query. And that's really all that you actually need. That should be sufficient then to add it as a new search engine. You're just going to say add. So there it is now. We've just created it under added. So it is a site search. You just want to click over on the right there and say make default. And if you go up now, you should see there it actually is now listed under your search engines. And if we just go back, it does now verify that there it is as your default, and you can also set it as your default for private. I mean, it is private anyway, so why not, sort of thing. So there, it's basically done. If I was now to go in and just search something over here again, like say Gadgeteer ZA, I'll hit enter, and you'll see it's put in that same search, that URL we had before, and it's substituted now after the Q. It has given that search parameter there, and there are the results, and it is using my search engine. So that's it. It's now the default. So that's really how to set it manually. As I said, it might differ a little bit per browser, but in essence, that'll always work for you to be able to set it as your default. So those are the 3 ways really that I'm aware of. And then I just want to briefly just touch on a couple of issues that came up when I did the self-hosting in Docker. So one of the times just after I'd set it up, I got this error memory overcommit issue. And there was quite a bit of help about, yes, you need to set something in a setting file. Well, I did try and map that inside Docker to sort of point to that file outside Docker, but that wasn't working. It wasn't recognizing. And essentially all I had to do is on the host system, In other words, either your desktop PC, if you've got the service, your Docker stuff running there, or on your VPS's host system on the server itself. You will just edit the file, and you can use Nano Editor or whatever you want to use. The file's location is etc/sysctl.conf, and I just added this line inside the file, vm.overcommit_memory equals 1. That will obviously take effect when you reboot the server, or you can just go to the CLI, type this line in as it is appearing here without the inverted commas, just hit enter to execute it, and you should be good to go. That error should then disappear. So that is the one error that you may possibly get. The other one was I got this missing limiter.toml file. The reason here was if you've activated the limiter essentially is limiting things like bots and certain other things that could affect your site. The point here being is that that file, for whatever reason, wasn't created or wasn't present when I did the installation. So all I did was I went to the GitHub project for SearXNG, and I just found the file called limiter.toml, and that was in the source code. And I just copied it down to the settings location. In other words, where I've got the settings file and so on for the service. And where you're going to find that is this is just an extract of my Docker Compose file. You see where I've set the ports and environment and so on. One of the things you do set is the volumes. And you're essentially mapping. Remember now here where the colon is, what's to the right is what is seen inside the Docker container. In other words, as far as the SearXNG service is concerned, it's looking for /etc/SearXNG. But on the external side, this is on the left side, this is what you are mapping as your physical location on your server. So you would go to wherever that actually is, and you would go and put that file in there. Once you've powered up your Docker container once, that source will be created, and you can go and find that volume. And you're just going to put the file, as I said, into that location. Then that should sort of sort the problem out. You can use the default file. I used it as is, so there was nothing further that we really had to do. Then the other problem is, for some reason, the Redis, which is your sort of caching database, it's not got a location specified, or I don't seem to cover it really in the instructions either. So if you are using one of those containers, in the settings file, it's in the settings.yml file. This is, again, you'll find it in that same location where you just put the previous file. These are various settings that the Docker container or the service will read when the container boots up. So this is just an excerpt of what that file actually looks like. And there is a part that says Redis, and I think this is commented out. I'm not too sure. But anyway, if you've kept all the standard things and your Redis container is called Redis, then you can use this URL exactly as it is over here, and that should then sufficiently point to that correct location when the application starts up, and that shouldn't be a problem anymore that you're not seeing it. And then I think just the last thing was just to remember here, there are some instructions I missed. I didn't read the stuff properly for the Docker setup, but there are two key things you do have to sort of remember. And one of them is there's actually a default secret key, but you actually want to generate your own one really. So if you go to a CLI and you just execute OpenSSL space rand for random -hex 32, it will generate for you a nice long sort of a random string. You can put that into your settings.yml file as the secret key. You can generate a new one later if you want to as well. It doesn't really matter. But the point is, I'm just saying that is how you can generate it if you're wondering, if you want to generate your own one. And the other one here is just a once-off. It's for supposed to be the very first time. But if you've forgotten, or you, like me, you didn't notice it, don't worry. All you actually do is just bring all your containers down. You need to go into your Docker Compose file that you used, and under the SearXNG section where that container is, there's a line that says cap_drop-all. What you must do is you need to comment that line out. Restart your container. Once it's up, you can shut it down again and then uncomment it to bring this line back again. What this effectively is doing is it creates this uwsgi.ini file, which is required. And again, it doesn't self-generate the first time if it sees it's not there. So just remember that is one thing. If you haven't done it, it's not a problem. You can do it a bit later, and once it's created, just uncomment it. And that really is it. Thanks for watching. I hope you found that interesting. It's a lovely search engine service to use, I think. Maybe start off with one of the public instances if you want to, and if you're enjoying it and finding it useful, either set that as your default, or you can do the self-hosting yourself. And even your desktop computer, obviously they're only accessible, by your desktop, or on a VPS server or a Raspberry Pi, maybe even inside your house somewhere. You can let the whole family use it as well. So I've certainly switched over to it myself for the last week or so, and I've really been enjoying using it. It's been working perfectly well for me. I've not found any need to drop back to Google or anything else to do my searching. Yeah, I hope you found it of some interest, and hope you do try it out. And yeah, keep safe out there, and I'll see you in my next video.